Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway. Up today it is yet another brand new steam locomotive by Rapido. Today's loco was first announced almost 2 years ago now, back in November 2023. But I had no idea these models were going to be with us so soon. Obviously we've seen a stream of sample photos and updates, but then all of a sudden we hear the models are ready, they're on their way, and now the loco is here. It is this, Rapido's brand new SECR Class O1, an 060 tender steam locomotive. And this was really begging to be done in model form. So it's a pre-grouping steam locomotive. They were first built back in the 1870s, so a very long time ago. But then they survived for an enormous number of years, basically right up until the 1960s, so the final decade of steam. Of course, that means that they're suitable for loads of different eras, loads of different modelers can make use of these. Like I say, absolutely begging to be done. So Rapido, I think we can certainly say that on quantity, they are doing very, very well. I have lost track of the number of models they have announced and even released over this past year. So yeah, quantity, a big thumbs up. Quality though, a little bit different. It's been a mixed bag. Some of their stuff over the past year has been amazing on quality. Some of it maybe not quite so much. We have had some absolutely amazing models this year. I think they are heading in the right direction. The last locomotive, the Small Prairie, absolutely fantastic. Another standout was their B-set coaches. Again, Great Western, so it's basically everything Great Western. It's going to be amazing. What is this one going to be like? I am very curious to see. It is expensive, so expectations are quite high. The RRP for this is £199.95. That is for the DCC ready version. And at the retailers, you can pick these up for £169.95. Now, compared with other 060 tender locos on the market at the moment, this is quite expensive. So another one is the Hornby J36. That costs £154.95 at the retailers at the moment. So that's about £15 cheaper, and the J36 is a very good quality model. It's almost entirely made of metal. Then we have the Oxford J26, this is brand new, or the P2 as it's also known. Also a very intricately decorated model, but much cheaper. £110.45, that's some £60 cheaper. So this is a lot more than several of the 060s available at the moment, which is fine. You know, I don't have a problem with the high prices, but now it is time to deliver. This needs to be a £170 loco. So let's find out if it's going to be. If you'd like to find out too, I do have affiliate links down in the description. Loads of these different O1s to check out. So if you want to see the range, do that. But for now, what's this like? Is it going to meet the standard? Let's see. So I've been trying to deduce from the weight of the box whether this is going to be a heavy model. And I caught myself sitting here for ages weighing the box in my hands as though there's something the matter with me. And then I suddenly thought, you know, I could just start the camera rolling and open it up and see. I don't know, silly bugger. Anyway, let's get going. Let me show the end of the box then. So the product code for the one I've got is 966001. It is the SECR O1, so that's the O-Class rebuilt around the turn of the century. I'll talk more about that later on. It's in the Wainwright green, so that's basically SECR green. As preserved, there is one of these preserved. It's number 65 and it is DC or silent with other options available. I think that's all the box has to show us though, so let's open it. I've not done this off camera, I always should say so. I do save every unboxing until I am recording. So, the lid is off, we've got the foam. Hopefully we've got some instructions. Yeah, we do. I was about to say, oh, they're not missing, are they? Right, can we see the loco? We just about can. There's the engine, disconnected from the tender, which appears to be packaged separately. That's interesting. I assume they'll just be pushed together, a bit like the Jones goods. I think that one was the same. Anyway, I'm guessing this will tell us. This is the owner's manual for the SECR O1. So, a little bit of a contents page here. Prototype history, if you want to pause and read this, you can do. As you can see, there's quite a bit here. Unboxing and connecting your model. So let's just see what the deal is with the drawbar. There's a clever pin and socket arrangement that not only couples the locomotive to the tender, but also transfers power, blah, blah, blah. So apparently you hold the model upside down, line the corresponding pins up, and simply push the tender against the locomotive. So you can't do this on the track. I think they said you could with the Jones goods, but it turns out that wasn't particularly easy. So yeah, that seems to be a bit of an update to the instructions. Running in, I shall do that. Silent operation, that should be fine. DCC operation, how to fit a decoder. Here's some more interesting information. So it looks as though the socket is in the tender. The tender body is screwed on and hooked on. You can pull the body off, and then there's the socket inside. Looks like a 21 pin socket, so that's the decoder you need. Put it back together. Right, servicing your model, let's see. So they don't actually tell you how to take this thing apart. They say just put a little bit of oil through this hole and that's it. Generally, I like to go a bit further than that. You do need to clean pickups and sort of remove old grease before adding new grease. So we'll look at that. Maybe it doesn't have wiper pickups. Maybe it has sort of a split chassis type pickup solution, in which case, yeah, it's probably best you're not adding fresh oil to that unless you know what you're doing. Anyway, whatever. List of DCC functions over there. Little bit about Stay Alive for DCC sound fitted users. Your model has come fitted with Mopower Stay Alive capacitors. I wonder if that's standard to all models. It sounds like maybe not. Fitting accessories then. So yeah, we've got some lovely accessories here. Lots of head code discs, various pipe work, coupling hooks with couplings on them, cab doors by the looks of it, and a diagram showing where all of this goes. That's very good. Seems like a good manual, this, really. Same for the tender buffer beam, lots of details there. And I think that is pretty much it, except for this. A very, very tiny exploded diagram, but here we have yet another very complex looking engine with loads of parts. What's the total part count? Looks like 124. Yeah, there's probably more than that because I assume some of these might be sub-assemblies. So yeah, amazingly complex. There's the tender. Again, loads of parts there, and then we have a photo of one of the real things in a BR black livery. But that's the instructions. I want to see the loco. So shall we pull this out? I think we shall. How's the weight feeling? Yeah, not too bad, about what you'd expect for an 060. And of course we do have these packaged separately, so I'll be all fancy, try and pull one out of either side. Right, and I guess the tender has the accessories with it then, so we'll look at that first. Wow, so this is impressive. Look at that. We have an etched number plate, presumably for the side of the cab. That I didn't realise we had. Lovely. Bit of paintwork on that as well. It is properly etched. The numbers and probably letters as well physically stand out. The head codes are fully decorated as well with quite some complexity. Ditto the cab doors. Look at the SECR lining on those. And even the screw link couplings are the fully movable type. That has impressed me. I love the look of all this stuff. And those are just the bits in the bag. Let's have a look and see what the actual model is like. Let's start with the tender. Tender first. Which is carefully wrapped. Oh, it's a very narrow tender, isn't it? Gives me Sterling single vibes. Look at that. Okay, lifting up. Ooh, that looks absolutely beautiful. And there's our first look at Rapido's rendition of SECR green. It looks kind of a darkish rendition, I suppose, but it's unmistakable, isn't it? And it is beautiful. Plus, this tender feels pretty weighty. I think the body might be made of metal, which is a good sign. Maybe the same will be true of the loco. Well, I hope so. It'd be flipping odd to make the tender out of metal and then make the loco plastic. So we shall see, but that is beautiful. And more on that in a little while. Right, the loco then. Just what is this going to be like? Let's have a look. Opening up. It's interesting that they are packaged separately. I suppose that minimises the chance of breakage, doesn't it? Right, unwrapping. First look at the finish. Ooh, that's a lovely finish. That boiler seems to shine at just the right level. You know, it doesn't look like a toy. It's not overly glossy, but it's not totally flat either. Yeah, I like the look of that. Okay, lifting. Here we go. Ooh, there's some weight to it. That's good. Oh yeah, nice work, Rapido. So I can feel metal on my hands. It's got the die-cast running plate, and also the boiler is made of metal as well, which is exactly what you would expect for this kind of money. I think Rapido have been hit and miss on this. That E1 I looked at, was quite disappointed by it given how much it cost. This seems to have been built like a £170 model should be. But yeah, that looks great. Let me hold the tender with it then, so you get a bit of the full effect. I won't couple them just yet. But there you go. That is lovely. Absolutely lovely. So then, a bit of background on this loco in real life, and then we'll take a much closer look. The South Eastern Railway O-Class was introduced in 1878 to the design of James Stirling for goods work. 122 examples were built between 1878 and the turn of the 20th century, by which time they stopped building new examples and began rebuilding the existing class into the new O1 design, as we see here with this model. They ran on 2 inside cylinders driven by Stephenson valve gear, and they had a tractive effort in the region of about 77 kilonewtons. The other thing that happened in 1900 was the introduction of the SECR C-Class, a newer and more powerful 060 design, which took over from the O1 on its main duties, relegating the O1s to secondary duties such as branch line work or similar. Nevertheless, the class survived in service for an enormous number of years. The O1s survived grouping and then nationalisation, and the final withdrawal didn't take place until 1961. Just like the SECR C-Class, only one O1 survives under preservation, while the rest, very sadly, were scrapped. So there she is, up close and personal for you, Rapido's absolutely beautiful SECR Class O1. And isn't this loco just gorgeous to behold? It really is just one of those wow looking locomotives. So it looks beautiful. We'll get into the detail in just a second. Quality wise, there is a noticeable step up in quality in many areas. Again, we'll get onto that in just a second. Think Stirling single. It is almost at Stirling single levels. This is so good. I say almost, it isn't quite there. There are still a few things that let this down for me. For instance, we've still got, once again from Rapido, these cheap feeling and looking plastic handrails. I don't understand why we've still got these plastic handrails on such expensive models. There seems to be no reason why these handrails had to be made of plastic. I've got many locomotives with this style of handrail, and they've been made of metal, and they were much better. As you can see, they don't sit quite right. That's particularly noticeable on the tender handrails. These are just plastic as well. And also the handrail isn't connected to the cab as it should be. It just sort of hangs in the air, and we've got this sort of thing going on. Yeah, that's not a great look, is it? Now, again, I can't see any reason why this should have been done except to save money. So yes, doing it this way, they have had to tool up a plastic part, but this way the handrail is a single piece that can be attached to the model rather than a wire piece which has to have the separate handrail holders separately manufactured and then threaded onto the handrail and fitted. This is a cheaper way to do it, but at £170 to the customer, I don't think we customers are looking for the cheapest possible solution, are we? I think wire handrails would have been much, much better. If Rapido want to cheap out like this, I think that should be reflected in the price. I think this should cost more like the Oxford J26 costs if it's going to have features like that. Although having said that, the Oxford J26 does have metal wire handrails. Almost quite embarrassing, isn't it? The other thing that really detracts from this model is this pipework over on the other side. It looks a state, doesn't it? Once again, it's clearly made of plastic. It's kind of wobbly and horrible looking. That we can forgive because in real life, the pipework here is kind of wobbly and horrible looking. But here on the model, it's much thicker than in real life. It's definitely over scale. And it's also covered in these sort of nicks and moulding marks, which just draw the eye. And the model is amazing in other areas, let me tell you, but because this is such a prominent part, because it stretches the whole length of the engine, you can't help but notice it, and it does look a mess. Again, it's not connected to the cab as it should be, and it kind of just bows downwards. I think the solution to this would have been some sort of real copper wire, very, very fine, so that it could be to scale, and then most of these issues would have been avoided. Yeah, I think it is time that Rapido addressed this kind of thing. These models are expensive. This is not good enough. But again, I've said harsh words there. I actually think the model is beautiful, which is why I think I've been so harsh. If these minor things were improved, this would be a model that I absolutely love to bits. And in many ways it is. So let's jump in, let's talk about the decoration. So the finish is great. We've got a beautiful satin finish on the boiler, but a much more matte finish on the smoke box, as is totally realistic. That looks just great. And then the lining, the SECR style lining on the boiler, the banding, this looks marvellous. The firebox has lining on it as well, which is awesome. The splashers are fully lined. The bottom of the smoke box is fully lined. Let's just go through and list off all of this stuff. The side of the cab is fully lined with very, very complex lining. The steps are lined. The running plate is lined. The sandboxes are lined. The buffers are lined. The buffer beams are lined. The wheels are intricately lined. We've got to pause for a second and look at these. Yeah, amazing. The spokes have got lining on them. The axles have lining around them. It is a genuinely beautiful wheel, that. They all are, actually, all six. Very, very impressive. We do have the number plate printed onto the side of the cab, and the quality of the printing there is fine, but of course we have proper etched plates that you can fit instead, which will stand out a lot better. That is fantastic to see. And the buffer beams also have the running number printed onto those as well. The quality of the printing is absolutely excellent on this. But I do think it is probably the detail that is the most impressive aspect of this model. So let's start down at the bottom. We've got these sanding pipes, which are painted into the red. They stand out beautifully. We've got full brake rigging, as you can see. You can even see the valve gear between the frames there, between the first two sets of wheels. That is just astonishing. And look at this towards the front. We've got guard irons, which are fully lined as well. That's one I missed off the list. I mean, it is outstanding how well detailed this loco is. And look at the coupling rods as well. These are obviously made of metal, very fine, nice and straight looking. Yeah, that is just marvellous. The running plate is made of metal. In fact, the loco weighs quite a lot. It weighs in at 240 grams. I didn't mention that before. That is 1 gram more than Bachmann's 812 class, so it's about right for an 060. It's 4 grams heavier than Oxford's J27, which I guess is impressive for Oxford, isn't it, given the price of their locos. But Hornby's J36 is still heavier, perhaps a little bit more metal on that loco, but the weight is very, very good. The boiler is die-cast as well. I guess the firebox is as well. So lots and lots of metal on here. Along the side of the boiler, we've got this valve here on this side sticking out with the pipework painted. Obviously the pipework and the valve itself are different colours. We've got a copper and a brass effect going on there. And then over on the other side of the boiler, we've got another one of those, plus the Westinghouse pump, which is marvellously complex, with all the pipework sticking out of it, with all the lining on it. Yeah, a really amazing looking part. Then we've got a better look at the valve gear beneath the boiler here. Amazing, loads of separate parts included in that, I think, and lots of different colours used as well. It looks marvellously convincing. We do unfortunately have this crack along the bottom of the boiler, which is a little bit noticeable. It's not the gaping crack that we've seen on some locos, but yeah, it is noticeable up close, I suppose. The buffers are lovely as well. We've got this kind of metallic finish to them, which Rapido don't like doing. They usually use just sort of paint to represent metal parts. For some reason on the buffers, they haven't done that. They've actually used the metal finish and it looks amazing, and these buffers are sprung as well. Buffer beam details are a little bit sparse out of the box. Obviously there's more you can fit, although the vacuum pipes are pre-fitted. Here's a look at the front of the smoke box door, which has the smoke box dart pre-fitted. Looks nice, separately painted as well, of course. And we've got lamp brackets around here as well, in addition to the sadly plastic handrail there. Now, the fit of the components to the top of the boiler looks brilliant on this. So here's the chimney. I think the base, at least, of the chimney is just a part of the moulding, but as a result of that, we don't have this massive gap around the chimney part where it fits into the smoke box. That is great. Same with the dome on here. This is just part of the moulding and then it's been painted separately. As a result of that, the fit of the dome into the boiler is far more seamless than we've seen from Rapido in the past. I still think the finish on the dome isn't quite right. In real life, this dome is very shiny, it's very reflective. The finish on this is kind of grainy looking, it just doesn't capture the real thing. Obviously this is subjective, but in my opinion, yeah, the finish of this still isn't great. This finish works on some of the smaller parts a little bit better, not so much on the big shiny dome. The way it fits into the boiler though, much, much better. Ditto the safety valve area as well. Yeah, this is all looking a lot more finessed this time. And look at the safety valves as well. They themselves have the brass colour to them, and then the spring in the middle there seems to be a separate part, and that's painted red. Yeah, it looks amazing. We've got pipe work coming out from the front of the cab here. The cab windows are glazed and the window frames are painted. Just astonishing. And then the whistle here is a separate part as well. I'm not sure if that's turned metal or not, but it doesn't have a turned metal finish. It's certainly been painted. And I know you've been waiting to see it. Here is a look inside the cab, which again is marvellous when it comes to detail. Loads of separate pipe work which has been painted. The regulator is a very complex part. Even that has multiple colours on it. The gauges are picked out. We've got dials on there. We've got lettering. What's that? Is that the Cox? Yeah, something open. Yeah, I can't see it from where I am, but the close-up lens will definitely show that that is legible. We've got a little crack in the firebox door where I assume there is going to be lighting. Yeah, this is just an incredible cab, as it needed to be, of course, because it's totally open. You can see into it very easily. Yeah, Rapido have seized this opportunity to fill this area with detail. We've also got a hinged tender foreplate, which, my fault, I've managed to get underneath the tender. So if that causes problems, I'll have to sort that out. But yeah, that's a feature we've got as well. The tender is a work of beauty as well. Look at this thing, and it's also a very strange tender. So a few of the features, we've got springs on the outside of the body here, just above the sort of running plate, if you like, of the tender. They've been lined as well, separately fitted. Very cool effect. It's also quite unusual to see handrails across the sides of tenders like this, but that is typical of locos of this particular era. So again, very cool. The wheels are fully decorated as well in much the same way as the loco wheels. So the way they peep out from the frames looks just beautiful. Very complex axle boxes, again, fully lined. Everything on this loco is fully lined. It is crazy. Even the front of the tender has these lined panels on it. Yeah, it is mind-blowing. I mean, in terms of decoration, I can certainly see why this loco had to be quite expensive. Don't get me wrong. This is probably the most complex paint job I've ever seen on a model. The side of the body, again, loads of complex lighting in all sorts of different colours. I ought to try and count the colours, didn't I? That would take a long time. And we've got the SECR lettering on the side, of course, again, beautifully printed on. The coal load is very full. It's a mighty coal load, this. I'm not sure if it's removable or not. I've tried to pull at it. Seems to be stuck in place. I assume it will be removable, but I'm not that desperate to remove it. And then around the back, here you've got more detail. These separately fitted steps, for example, more lamp brackets, and another fully detailed buffer beam. And it does have both the front and rear NEM couplings pre-fitted. These have a nice little bit of movement to them, bit of pivoting. Hopefully these will be perfectly functional. Although the visible rust all over the coupling hooks is not a great look. Notice that on some of the screws as well. I don't know why the model appears to be decaying before I've even had it an hour, but yeah, that's another thing. So it's an amazing looking model. I can't overstate how much detail this has. The number of parts, the quality of the paint job, the quality of the build, it is a marvellous model to behold. Up close in places, it does not stand up to scrutiny. I don't like the wobbly plastic handrails. I don't like that pipe work, which doesn't look very good. And it's not without visible glue. Some of the components do have a bit too much glue on them. Not that many. For the most part, the build quality is okay, but it's not absolutely perfect. So with that, hopefully that gives you a good sense of what this model is like. Let's get this down onto the track, let's see how it runs, and let's find out what the mechanism is like. Not desperately looking forward to taking this thing apart, but I shall try. Okay, so we need to have a talk about the way Rapido does things like loco mechanisms. I've already done the first run, I've done that test, I'll show you that in just a second. After that, I took this apart to look at the mechanism, and that is what we need to talk about. So I've found this with quite a lot of Rapido's locos now. They are very pretty, but they're not very practical. What I mean by that is these models are expensive. This O1 is £170, right? And at that kind of price, this is not a disposable model. That means you're not going to use this for a week or a year or even 5 or 10 years and then throw it away. This is an investment for life. It's an investment that you can pass down to your children if you're lucky enough to have children that care about this sort of thing. It's for keeps, as Simon Kohler would say. And for me, that means a model has to be serviceable. When the pickups get dirty and the thing starts juddering, you have to be able to access them to clean them. When the loco starts screeching because its motor has run dry and needs some lubricant, it has to be easy to get the body off and oil that motor so that it can keep running without sort of running itself into the ground. And the fact that there is no mention on how to do any of this in the instructions tells us quite a lot, doesn't it? To me, that says Rapido knows this process is ridiculous and convoluted, and it also says they don't want you doing it. They don't want you doing it because they know there's a risk of damaging the loco, and indeed there is. In fact, the design is so convoluted and so kind of bad with this loco that even the factory has been unable to build this loco as specified, and we'll get to those parts as we get to them. First of all though, here's a look at the drawbar. This is a different design to the one we saw on the Jones goods. They've actually gone back to the design they used on the Sterling single, with the clips on the sides like that, and then the 8 pins connecting them electrically. And as you can see, it pivots quite nicely. I think this is fine. You know, it's not a small or delicate looking connector, but it seems robust. It's easy enough to put together and pull apart again. Yeah, that's fine. In terms of pickups, we actually do have all-wheel pickup on this loco. So the tender has these bus bars which picks up power through the axles of the tender wheels. You can just about see them there. I guess this also means the tender axles run in bearings too. That's pretty good. Now the loco has wiper or plunger pickups touching its driving wheels, but as you can see they are buried deep inside the chassis, so actually you would need to get access to those properly in order to clean them. Now the plungers may be carbon, so they may be sort of self-cleaning, but obviously that won't protect against dust or gunk that will accumulate on those over time. Eventually you are going to want to clean these. So for that you have to remove the base keeper plate. Again, no instructions as far as I saw on how to do that in the instruction manual, so I was on my own with this. I wanted to check that there was no screw underneath the front coupling, so I set about trying to remove that. Well, that was a lot easier said than done. It turns out the front coupling was glued in place, so that's the first cock up at the factory. There's no way these parts should be glued in. Is the fit wrong? Would they drop out if they weren't glued in? I'm not sure, but that's not very good. Either way, I did just take out the base keeper screws, and obviously the brake rigging was in the way. Fortunately though, this was not glued in place, so I was able to get that out without too much faffing. Well, a bit of a faff, but without too much faffing, that came out. Then there's several details in the way of it. There's pipe work stopping you pulling the base off. There's this detail part here which was glued to the base keeper plate. Again, that didn't need to be glued. That could have been friction fitted, because to remove the base you have to overcome that. So I had to break through the glue on that part as well. Again, not great. Then finally the base did come off, and it's quite a nice base piece actually. It's die cast, it's made of metal, you can see it's painted, and the bottom of the firebox has been picked out on it as well. So even here there is great attention to detail. Anyway, under here, it's all good. We've got bearings fitted to the driving axles. We've got a single wheel drive. It's just the rear axle that's driven, very simple. And with the base off, yes, you can pull out the axles to give you access to these plunger pickups, which you can wipe clean. That should sort those out. Now, body removal is just ridiculous. Again, I had to figure all this out because the instructions don't tell you any of this. The first body screw is in the top of the chimney. It's a little bit coy, a little bit tricky to find, but I found that. Then there's 2 more screws underneath the firebox. And to get to these screws, the sanding pipes are in the way, the pipe work on the chassis is in the way, you've got to go down behind the coupling rods. It's just a nightmare to access these screws. And on closer inspection, one of those screws was entirely missing. What does that tell you? That tells you that this is such a pain to access that even the factory noped out on it. They didn't bother to fit this screw, there was just one in on the other side. A design has to be bad when even the factory can't put it together properly. So amazingly, without breaking the details, I did lose a sanding pipe, but without breaking anything off, I did manage to get that screw undone. And then, having disengaged the Westinghouse pump and the cab handrails, I was able to get the body off. But by God, that was an awkward process. Anyway, inside everything's fine. We've got a die-cast chassis, a very good beefy cordless motor here with a flywheel fitted to it. That's very good to see as well. And there are LEDs in the firebox as well, and I'll show you these working in just a second. In terms of the tender, this is where the DCC socket is. Thankfully, this one is a bit easier to access. So we've got 2 screws just by the NEM pocket, and just as the instructions said really, the tender body can be lifted off. Underneath there, we've got the 21-pin DCC socket. We do have stay alive capacitors fitted even to the DCC ready model, so that's great. If you chipped this, you would get stay alive. That's not going to work on analog though, of course. And I think this is a speaker beneath the circuit board as well. Obviously, again, I'm not going to be able to make use of that on analog, but it is there. So if you wanted to add sound to this, I don't think you need a speaker, you don't need stay alive, you just need the decoder. That's pretty good. And then in terms of gauging, the back-to-back on the Loco came in quite reliably at 14.3mm, which is fine. The tender, a little bit less reliable, possibly because of those plastic axles, 14.3 to 14.4, none of them far away from the standard, so gauging is absolutely fine as well. So the quality of the mechanism is fine, it's just the design of it and the serviceability of it which leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, I am very lucky that all I've lost is a sanding pipe off this. Not a fun process and not something that everybody is going to be able to do. But anyway, that's the rant over with. The performance, spoiler alert, was pretty decent. So let me jump back in time and show you that. Okay, moment of truth then. So I've asked a lot of questions in this video so far. I wasn't sure what the quality was going to be like. One thing that I am more confident in though is that this is going to be a good performer. Hopefully I'm not jinxing it by saying that, but usually Rapido are spot on in this area. So forwards direction, let's give it its first ever test. Remember, it's not been running yet. This will be its first bit of juice, but I'm interested to see how this runs out of the box. So turning up, here we go. Ooh, I mean, that was quite impressive, wasn't it? Goodness gracious, it crept forward just beautifully. And she is thoroughly alive. All right, let's run by at 50% speed, half power. It's very sensible, that. Yeah, not too quick at all, that, and in reverse. Yeah, so a nice lively runner, not too fast, which suggests sensible gearing. Hopefully that means plenty of torque. Have we got lighting here? Oh yes, oh, look at that stripe of red light just leaking out of the firebox there. That's very pleasing, I like that. It's not flickering or anything on analog, although I believe it will do on DCC sound. That's pretty cool. Right, is there power here in this Loco? Let's see, fingers on the buffer beams. Can it spin its wheels? Yep, so there's good torque in the mechanism then, excellent. And finally, how well does this crawl? Let's see, here we go. Again, I'll test this after running in, but here it is straight out of the box. It's going. Wow. That is marvellous. A bit more. Smooth acceleration. It's another great performer. Maybe it could be a touch smoother, but again, this is its first run. To say it's going from stone cold here, I don't think that's bad at all. And that crawl was marvellously slow. So, looking very, very promising on performance. But let's send it round the track and let's get it run in. Here we go. Alright, so sometimes you just get a good feeling. Sometimes you can just tell. This is one of those. Yeah, this is a great runner. Look at that. No hesitation. Perfectly smooth, at least at this speed. Yeah, it's a very happy runner. It's not struggling. I can't hear its motor roaring with the effort. Yeah, it seems to be a very, very good performing engine. So I'll let this run in. I don't expect there will be any issues, but if there are, I'll feed back to you. I'll give it 30 minutes forwards, then 30 minutes backwards, and then we shall return and we shall finish off the review. I am really enjoying this now. Like I say, if a loco runs well, it immediately goes up in my estimations, and that's exactly what's happened. Right, don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Alright then folks, that is running in complete. And yeah, this is, you can just tell, I think just seeing it inch forward then even, you can tell what a beautiful runner this is. It's very smooth, it never cut out or anything like that, it seems spot on. It's clear that cordless motor is excellent, it just runs beautifully. So let's do some tests again, hang on. I'll show you what coaches I've got in a second, but I'll just back them up for now. Let me show you 50% speed. I think it may be a little quicker if anything, but it's still sensible. And maximum speed, obviously this is a goods engine, it doesn't need to be flying along, but can it? Oh, yeah, it can. I don't know why I always exclaim when a loco goes fast, I know it's going to happen. So yeah, that's very good. The torque was good, it's still good, it should be. Yeah, that's really good actually, that's even better. And finally, the slow speed, what's that like? It was very good before, is it still turning up? It's been through the ordeal of a disassembly since then, but maybe it's a bit jerky at that speed. Let's try again. A bit slower. Yeah, it is jerking a little bit, but it wasn't before, so maybe that was the unfortunate process of disassembly that's upset it a bit, although it's still pretty slow. It's just a touch jerky, isn't it? A bit faster. Alright, so yeah, maybe it has lost some of its smoothness, but I don't think I will blame Rapido for that. Like I say, disassembly certainly was an ordeal. And it's still good, you know, that's still, that is still fine. And of course it's still a good crawler, it's still going to be great for coupling up slowly and such. Any better in reverse? Oh yeah. Oh good. So that can do a nice smooth coupling then. Smooth acceleration. Alright, well, yep, it's a good performer then. Overall, very, very good. So obviously this is a goods engine, but it's also a preserved engine, so it does do passenger work these days. So I've paired it up with some SECR Genesis coaches, almost forgot the name there. So let's back up to those, let's couple, and let's see what it looks like as part of a train. Whoa, probably very attractive, but let's see, here we go. Okay, up, nice and steady, let's back up. Did I get him? Yep, I got him. All right, so it's coupled to Genesis. Let's set off then, let's see how it gets on with a load. Oh, I should tell you what the tractive effort was. So obviously these 4 coaches, they're not a lot. Apparently this could haul up to 19 coaches on straight and level track. It's got a tractive effort of 0.29 newtons. That is up there for an 060, so very good. The extra weight on this loco has helped it out massively. So here we go, accelerating with just 4 Genesis coaches. There we go, and I'll go a bit slower this time, about 40 I reckon. Okay, so I'm also running some other SECR locos today, so I'll tell you the ones running. I've got other 060 tender locos in the sidings, so see which ones you can spot. On the middle line though, I am running the SECR P-Class. Must be one of the first SECR locos I looked at. Could be that or the Hornby H-Class. I think they were about the same time, weren't they? But that's another goods engine, which looks way fancier than it ought to as a goods engine because of its livery. And then on the inside line, we do have a passenger engine from the SECR. This is the SECR H-Class by Hornby, now sporting a coreless motor, which was not original to it, but it runs much more nicely as a result of that. So let's catch up with the O1. Here she goes then with the coaches. Oh, look at that. What an amazing view that is. Any slowing down? Yeah, maybe a little. Yeah, very, very slightly, but there certainly isn't an issue with the torque there. So yeah, this is a real pleasure to run. And I think I ought to say, really, because I have complained about a few things here. There are issues with the quality, the serviceability is a real nightmare, let's be honest, but I don't want those things to overshadow what an amazing job Rapido have done with this loco. This is just one of an entire range of O1 locos that they have produced, all with their different details, all with different liveries. There's so many different parts to these things, there's so many different decorated components. It is an absolute mammoth of a project, this. And the fact that the loco looks as beautiful as it does, the fact that it is so refined in its detailing, I think needs to be recognised, really. So, you know, this is expensive, obviously it's got to be good, but it really is good. You know, the way it looks, the way it runs is absolutely amazing. So I want to make that crystal clear. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous loco. And do I recommend this? You know what? Yes, I think I do. You need to take it steady when it comes to servicing, and this is one of those locos that I don't recommend servicing until it needs it. Don't do it until it starts stopping on the points. Don't do it until the motor starts screeching. Some locos I like to service periodically, every year, every 2 years, whatever. This is not going to be one of them. I don't want to have that headache of taking this apart unless I absolutely need to. Let's have some ratings then for the all-new Rapido SECR Class O1. So the level of detail I am not going to fault. This is an astonishing locomotive, and it's hard to sum up in what ways this is astonishing, but obviously the paintwork is tremendous. I do think this is the most complex paint job I've ever seen on a locomotive. The level of detail itself is awesome as well, loads of tiny little separate parts. The cab is outstanding. The valve gear between the frames, again, I think is probably the best I've ever seen. The quality of the moulding, it all looks really, really good. I'm not keen on the finish of the dome on top, but I think this is a relatively minor thing on what otherwise is an amazing model. So on the whole, I've given it 5-star, it is outstanding. Performance, again, I cannot fault. This is a really lovely runner. It isn't too fast, it's sensibly geared, it's got plenty of power, it doesn't slow down around curves. The crawl is fantastic as well. I mean, it is a great performer, not a problem with that at all. It's also relatively heavy for an 060 tender loco, 240 grams, so the pulling power, 19 coaches or 0.29 newtons, that is pretty darn good for a loco of this size. The mechanism though gets less than perfect marks. So on paper, the mechanism itself is excellent. So it's got the proper bearings on the driving axles, it's got all-wheel pickup, it clearly has a quality motor with a flywheel, it's even got a pre-fitted speaker, I think, plus stay alive capacitors. So it is a good mechanism, but the serviceability is very, very irritating on this. It's difficult to get the base keeper off to access the axles or the pickups. It's a nightmare to get the body off to access the motor. Most models make this very easy these days, but this one was a real nightmare. Plus there was quite a few components glued on which shouldn't have been. The front NEM pocket, for example, some of that detail fitted to the base keeper plate. Yeah, that's probably the factory's bad. We've got the missing screw. Again, that was probably on the factory. Just not a great design. Models do need to be assemblable, but they also need to be disassemblable after they've left the factory so that they can have a long and happy life with their customers. Yeah, it's just lacking in that area. Similarly, the quality I've given 3.5 star now. Aspects of this model are very high quality. The decoration, very high quality. I love the metal construction of the body and the running plate and even the tender. That is all fantastic, but we do have some visible glue on this model. Some of the handrails, some of the details, they had that visible glue misting around them. That spoils the illusion a little bit. We've got the handrails, which don't always sit straight. I think they are mostly straight on this, but when you look up close, you can see that they aren't. Pity that those are not a more sturdy metal. And we've got that pipe work across the side too, which again is just molded plastic. It doesn't sit very nicely, it bends, it's got nicks in it. Yeah, there are a few things dragging the quality down, unfortunately. Finally then, value for money, the RRP is £199.95, and at the retailers this costs £169.95. I bought mine from Derail's Models, who did a great job as always. I forgot to mention those earlier. So this is quite expensive for an 060 tender engine. In some ways that makes sense. I mean, like I say, the decoration is very, very impressive on this. It's very complex. That will have had quite a cost attached to it. But in other areas, I wish this was slightly better quality, and I wish this was more serviceable. If other manufacturers can manage this with their cheaper models, I think Rapido ought to have been able to manage this with their more expensive models. Those plastic handrails are a bit insulting when an Oxford Rail 060 tender loco for £110, even that can have metal wire handrails, and the quality of those is better, or at least it was on the J27. Overall then, that is 8.18 out of 10, or a grade of B. This is an outstanding model. It runs beautifully and it looks amazing. It's just failing a little bit on the nuts and bolts. If this was more serviceable, slightly higher quality, or had a slightly more reasonable price tag, I would have no problem giving this a grade of A. Into the logbook this goes then, 17th place, just above the Hornby A3 and below the Hornby Drummond 700 class. Can I recommend this model? Yes, but heaven help you when it comes time to service it. Alright then folks, well that will just about do it for my review of Rapido's brand new SECR O1. And you know what, no model is perfect, there's always something to criticise, and that is true of this model. But like I mentioned earlier on, there is a noticeable step up in the quality here. It is lovely to have another loco from Rapido with the metal body. Not everybody sees the value in metal bodies. Personally, I do. I love picking up an expensive model and just feeling that it's metal. Metal just seems better quality than plastic to me. And models like the E1 were a bit disappointing to me in how plasticky they are. And while some of the detailing on this loco is certainly a bit too plasticky, on the whole, the model looks and feels like a real quality item, which is great from Rapido, and I hope they do more of this. Also, the way this model has been presented is just fantastic as well. I mean, it absolutely gleams. Every little part of it is painted and decorated and lined. I mean, it's a showstopper. It really is a showstopper. You put this on a layout, people are going to stop to look at it. So yeah, I love it. The SECR green is one of my favorites, and this is a gorgeous rendition of it. So if you want to try one of these, I do have affiliate links down in the description. Thanks ever so much for watching. I'll leave this review here. Comment down below, let me know what you thought about it. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you very, very soon for some more videos. All right, cheers folks, you take care.